not our presentation.
Hi everybody, this is Raul Smith and welcome to another edition of the Closing Tag podcast. This is episode 5. The name of this episode is Help! I'm being persecuted here. It's a crazy time to live in Utah, I tell you. Anyway, so this particular episode talks about the ownership of the Utah Jazz, namely Ryan Smith, doing some awesome things, and Utahns not seeing it as awesome, which is really weird. We also talk about some career advice that I give to every young aspiring web developer, software engineer, and a lot more. So yeah, as always, each podcast is unofficially sponsored by Galactic Blue, web development, graphic design, logo design resource. Visit galacticblue.net for how your business can benefit from our services. We're also unofficially sponsored by Telltale Heart, telltalemovie.com for more information on this amazing short film adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's brilliant work. And we're getting some more sponsors coming in shortly. Hopefully we'll get better microphone equipment, and we've already got a better webcam, which is awesome. So yeah, we'll definitely keep you up to date on all the changes there. And now we get to the episode. Help! I'm being persecuted. Alright, please do enjoy, guys. Welcome sports enthusiasts and business entrepreneurs. Welcome rough riders and ride or diers alike. Welcome to another edition of The Closing Tag. Hi, I'm Raul Smith. I am the President, CEO, co-founder, and lead developer for Galactic Blue. I wanted to welcome everyone to the podcast as usual. And as always, we are on major platforms, all the major platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, and much more. And of course, we are on YouTube as well. If you wish to see a video of the podcast, the link is in the description. And as always, this podcast and video is unofficially sponsored by Galactic Blue, your professional web development, graphic design, and logo design resource. Visit galacticblue.net for more information on how your business can benefit from our services. And also, we are unofficially sponsored by the Telltale Heart, from the brilliant and creative, insane mind of McLean Lundquist, and based on the amazing novel by Edgar Allan Poe. The Telltale Heart takes a deep dive into the sea of madness, already racking up many awards in the short and indie film circuits. Visit telltalemovie.com for more information on where you can watch this film. Now we've got a slammed show today, and I want to save some time towards the end to discuss a little bit of career advice for our young aspiring web developers and software engineers out there. So let's start things off first with our Discord discussion of the week. So as of this recording, the United States is finally starting to hopefully see the light at the end of the coronavirus tunnel. It's been over a year now since the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic shut our very way of life as we know it in this country down. And the lessons and results have been a little eye-opening, to say the least. Grown adults have acted like petulant children when told they should wear a mask in public to help protect the people they love. Some refuse to believe there was ever a virus to begin with. Some refuse to believe that they themselves would ever get affected by the virus. Oh, it can't harm me. And some believe the virus was no worse than the H1N1 virus that affected our country back in 2009. The biggest thing this country failed to do from the start was acknowledge the social and economic ramifications even a partial shutdown would have on society. And yes, a lot of people and businesses quickly adapted, switching to remote work, ordering most of their essential needs online, commuting only when absolutely necessary, and all of that was great. But the biggest failure of it all lies within the United States government itself at the time. Their inability to acknowledge that there was a problem from the start. I mean, the CIA had documentation in December 2019 that this virus was coming, and they still decided to do nothing about it. Their attempts to convince people that nothing was wrong, business as usual, let's keep going it along. Their insistence on refusing a complete shutdown of services so that the CDC had time to assess the situation and come up with a better long-term solution. Their inability to get a deal done until 2 months ago to get people the sufficient funds they need to basically survive. And I could do an entire podcast episode on all the instances and examples of Donald Trump's inability to do the right thing. However, now with proper funding in place, job placement starting to get back on track, and a vaccine being distributed nationwide, the US is finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So the Discord discussion of the week is as follows. What have you learned, either about yourself or others, about during the COVID-19 pandemic? So I'll give you my answer real quick. I've personally learned a lot about myself, both good and bad, over the last 14 months. I've learned I'm terrible when I'm stressed. I tend to shut everyone around me out and don't take the time to relax. Now, I have something to say about that later on as well. I tend to have 100 different ideas, but no real structure on how to approach those ideas. I also tend to sleep quite a bit more when I'm stressed. But most importantly, I think over the last 14 months, I've become more opinionated on just about everything, which for a podcast, that's great. But for my social life and for, having basic discussions with other people, probably not so much. So what say you? Come join the discussion in Discord. As always, I've left a link to the discussion board in the description of this pod and the YouTube video. I would be very much appreciative if you stopped by and said hi. So something else that I've learned about myself during the pandemic, I tend to enjoy movies more when I actually have time to sit down and watch them. Like if I have them on in the background, it's great and all, but I tend to enjoy them more if I'm actually watching the film. And one such movie that I plan on rewatching this weekend when I have time to sit down and watch it is The Telltale Heart, based on the fabled short story by Edgar Allan Poe, and from the creative and brilliant mind of McLean Lundquist comes the most frightening deep dive into the sea of madness. The Telltale Heart has already won multiple awards, including Best Sound Editing and Best Actor in Sonny Grimsley at the Indie Shorts Film Festival, as well as the coveted Diamond Award for Best Short Film at the Mindfield Film Festival, say that 5 times fast, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Most recently, The Telltale Heart was even nominated for Best Makeup at the Film Quest Film Festival. Revisit Edgar Allan Poe's short story, as this film brings more than just a classic horror story to a new audience, but also discovers a creative way to explore the groundbreaking psychological thriller. The narrative is enhanced through an unprecedented use of sounds and light, and the characters blend a modern sensibility of anachronistic charm, as seen through an unsettling array of space and time, while a shifting setting disorients the unwitting audience. What is seen and what is heard leads the perplexed audience to ask, what is insanity and what truly constitutes reality? TelltaleMovie.com for more information on this brilliantly insane thriller. The closing tag is honored to have them as an unofficial sponsor of the podcast. So before this next take, if you had an office pool of betting which I was going to talk about in segment number 3, sports or politics, and your answer was both, you win. Now, if you recall in my sports segment on episode 3, I gave all the reasons why there should be both optimism and skepticism regarding the Utah Jazz. Spoiler alert, this segment is going to talk about the Utah Jazz some more. So since our last discussion, the Utah Jazz have remained at the top of the NBA standings at 42-15 as of this recording. With only a few weeks left in the regular season, they seem all but certain to have home court advantage in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. And despite the insistence of one Ben Simmons, Rudy Gobert appears to be on an historic defensive tear this season, drawing comparisons to other defensive greats like Ben Wallace, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Dikembe Mutombo. But sadly, with all the good news, there is a level of bad that has to come with it. And no, I'm not talking about the fact that MVP candidate Donovan Mitchell sprained his ankle the other night and is now scheduled to miss the next 2 weeks. No, this pertains to the new majority owner of the Jazz, Ryan Smith. First, it should be noted that the Jazz, much like just about any publicly traded company, is owned by a group of shareholders, each one with their own level of influence and pull in the day-to-day decision-making of the business. After 30 plus years of owning the Jazz and committing to keeping the Jazz in Salt Lake City, the Miller family, headed by matriarch Gail Miller, sold the team in late 2000 to a group of investors led by local business guru Ryan Smith, no relation, who was once the owner and is now still the CEO of Qualtrics, a company based in Utah dedicated to the research and cure of various childhood cancers and diseases. If you've ever watched a Jazz game and you ever wonder what that Five for the Fight patch is all about, that's Qualtrics' pledge to fight against childhood cancer. Pretty awesome cause, right? But he's only the majority owner. He does not own 100% of the team. And don't worry, we'll get back to him in a bit because this take is mostly about him. Also part of this investment group that owns the Jazz is Australian billionaire Mike Cannon-Brookes. On top of being a billionaire in Australia, Mike is also the man behind Atlassian. Now, if you're in web development like I am, you probably already know what Atlassian is, but just for those that aren't aware, Atlassian is the company that owns Bitbucket, a Git-based source code repository hosting service that offers both commercial plans and free accounts with an unlimited number of private repositories. Basically, it helps version control and helps developers collaborate on certain projects without stepping on each other's toes. It's the gist of it anyway. In addition to both Smith and Cannon-Brookes, the Jazz also has ownership stock owned by another billionaire, Ryan Sweeney. Sweeney is very much familiar with both Smith and Cannon-Brookes, as his company, Accel, helped fund and invest both Qualtrics and Atlassian. And just this past Friday, in a league-shattering, foundation-shaking announcement, the Utah Jazz announced that former player Dwayne Wade now has ownership stock of the team. That's right. 13-time All-Star, 3-time NBA champion, former Finals MVP, and the man responsible for creating the Miami Heat super trio of himself, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh, is now an active minority owner of the Utah Jazz. I give you a minute to let that sink in, but it's been 2 days and I'm not sure it's sunk in for me yet. While this is very exciting news, it was marred by some controversy here in the good old Rocky Mountains this past week. So as kind of a publicity thing, but also as kind of a challenge to the team, majority owner Ryan Smith at the beginning of the season proclaimed that every time the Jazz win a game this season, whether it's the playoffs, regular season, preseason, doesn't matter, he will gift a full scholarship to a chosen high school student that is deemed as underprivileged and of minority descent. As of this recording, the Jazz have won 45 games total this season, 3 preseason games and 42 regular season games. The fact is, many minorities in this state, Blacks, Mexicans, and even Polynesians, come from underprivileged backgrounds. The work Ryan has been doing to make these often forgotten segments of the community get the education and attention that they need has been nothing less than remarkable. He has 100% helped not only make the Jazz a better team, but also helped to make our community better as well. Sadly, and this is why I mention all of this, not everyone shares that opinion. In a recent conference call, given an update on the statewide mask mandates and immunization efforts, Utah Governor Spencer Cox also gave praise to Ryan Smith's efforts, noting that his initiative has given underprivileged minority students over $1 million total in college scholarships. This unfortunately did not sit well with some that were watching the live feed. Privileged white parents declaring Christian and white persecution because how dare he give a Black or Mexican money but not a white child? Yes, because one totally has something to do with the other. Right. Listen, 2 things. First, it should be noted that Ryan Smith is using his own money to do this. He's not using any money that he's making off the Jazz. He's not using any money that he's making off Qualtrics. He's using money out of his own pocket. I mean, we talk about this all the time, be it either in real life or on this podcast, how billionaires should use their money to benefit others more often. And here we are having an instance of someone finally doing the right thing, and our first instinct is, what about me? Again, and I keep repeating this point, for a group of people that specializes in telling others to hold themselves accountable and work for a living, conservatives sure do have this amazing skill of expecting to be the exception to both rules. Second, you have money. I'm assuming you go to church, and if you're going to church in Utah and you're complaining about white persecution, there is a good chance you're LDS. Sorry, not sorry. Do what every good LDS family does. Send your kid on a mission. That should more than pay for the old college tuition right there. Moral of the story, and I know it bears repeating, there is no such thing as white persecution in this country. You are not, I repeat, you are not being persecuted for the color of your skin. You're just no longer allowed to do this very same thing to others. This is not the 1950s. As much as you and your red hat wearing kinfolk would love for it to be, this is the year 2021. My advice to you is to grow up. So now normally I would come on here, talk about an awesome technology that I want to share with all of you, or even show off some pretty awesome web coding aspects of what I do on a daily basis. But today I thought I'd change it up a little bit. There's been some recent events in my personal life that have led me to reevaluate life choices that I've made over the last 12 years. And I want to share a revelation that I had the other night while I was in the process of quitting a job. And I want to share with you, particularly if you are a young, aspiring web developer or software engineer, and you want to pursue what's best for your career rather than what's best for your immediate future. You ready? It's twofold. First and foremost, it's okay to say no every once in a while. I've had to learn this lesson the hard way, and I'm only now starting to remotely get that concept. We're so caught up in the whole, yeah, I'll do this, yeah, I'll do this, yeah, I'll do this, thinking we're Superman. We can code an entire website in a day, right? But we can't. That's just the nature of it. That's just the reality of the situation. We cannot code an entire website in a single day, and especially if we're loading our plate like I've been doing lately of 7, 8, 9, 10 projects at a time. I mean, I've had to manage over 200 websites at one particular point in time. I mean, how I survived that, I'll never know. But it happens. We tend to say yes too often, and it's up to us to know our limit. I'll get back to knowing your limit here in a bit. Also, it's okay to be selfish. Now, let me explain something. You should always, and I emphasize, you should always be professional. You should always let the company know that you have a better opportunity to advance your career, and you should always put 2 weeks notice in. This will give the company that you're leaving enough time to find a suitable replacement for you. It's just basic common decency, and as a wise man once told me, you never want to burn any bridges in this industry. Word gets around, people know. But also never apologize for taking an offer that better suits your needs or career desires. Now, whatever those desires are, whether it be money, whether it be the ability to work remotely, being able to learn this amazing new technology that you always wanted to notch on your resume, always look out for your best interests, but stay professional about it. It's okay to be selfish. It's also okay to be selfish and work fewer hours. There's a very weird misconception going on in this country, especially now in the pandemic era, that we should always be working, especially as entrepreneurs. Know your limit. Know how many hours you are going to be working, and know how many that you'll be able to work before you get to the point of burnout. And yes, burnout is an actual thing for developers. I've suffered burnout a couple times myself in 2020 to the point where my head was hurting and my eyes were blurry. You don't want to overwork yourself. Ask for a break. Ask for a day off. If you have to take a sick day, do it. You're not going to lose your career if you take a day and relax. This is something I've had to learn over the past year, and maybe a little later than I would have liked, but hey, better late than never, right? Lastly, there's no reason to apologize for not taking an opportunity if it involves something you're not comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with, say, a certain technology like Python or C# or something, or if you're not comfortable relocating, or if you're not comfortable with traveling. I've had a couple of these in the past year as well. Usually I'm pretty open to relocating, but for me, it would have to be a pristine opportunity. It would have to be like the creme de la creme. I would have to make an insane amount of money for a straight 40-hour week in order for it to even be an option. I mean, let's face it, Utah has been my home for a good chunk of my life. I have family here. I don't want to just uproot my entire life for what I believe would be a parallel career move. And I suggest that you probably don't want to do the same either. Especially if you got family, especially if you've got, children, or you've got a spouse, if you've got any kind of obligation outside of just work. You want to make sure that you do what's best for you. I think this would probably be another good discussion to have on Discord. So I will put that up on the feed as well. So I will leave the link in the description of both the pod and the YouTube video. And I ask you the question, what are some career decisions that you've had to make in your development career that were difficult and you almost feel guilty for? So that's all the time that we have for this particular episode. Quick programming note. I am going to probably be releasing, smaller episodes. The original plan was to have like these hour-long episodes every week or whatnot, every 2 weeks or rather, because of the fact that my plan only calls for 2 hours free, and then the rest I have to pay extra for or whatever. But I think since my schedule's been kind of freed up a little bit, I'm going to try and do these quick 30-minute episodes instead. So I want to kind of try and do one of these every week. If I don't release an episode, it's probably because I've got prior obligations, I've got, my daughter coming over or whatever. I'll do what I can to make up for it throughout the week, but no guarantees, no promises, okay? I want to thank each and every person that is watching the stream, watching the archived videos on YouTube, downloading the pod, even check this out on our Facebook page. Links are all in the description. Thank you so much. And again, a friendly reminder, this podcast is unofficially sponsored by Galactic Blue, your professional web development, graphic design, and logo design resource. Visit galacticblue.net for more information on how your business can benefit from our services, as well as The Telltale Heart, the indie short horror film that's sweeping all the film festivals. Visit telltalemovie.com for more info on where you may be able to find it in your area. If you would like to help sponsor the podcast, we don't have a Patreon, but I'm always open to suggestions. So hit me up at raul@galacticblue.net. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and many other podcast providers. Our video of each podcast can be found on our dedicated YouTube channel, which the link for that is also in the description, as well as our new Facebook page. Again, links in the description. Give us a follow if you'd be so kind. Thank you again so much for watching and for listening. And remember to always include your closing tags.
On that, our presentation.